Hello everyone and welcome to this week's short video tutorial. This would be the third board from the free ebook on openings that is available on the World Xiangqi Federation website. In the original Chinese book, this was the fifth board, and chapter 1 was concerned with the same direction cannons. So without further ado, let us begin. In this board, central cannon, Red would still choose to attack with the foul chariot variation. Black would counter with the rank chariot variation, and Red would play p3+1, which is one of the most commonly played openings for this opening system. Black would move his chariot across the palace to try to concentrate his attack and apply pressure on Red's left flank. And Red would choose to play h8+7. This would be to develop his left horse as a proper horse and to solidify and consolidate the central file in the center of the board. Now in this board, Black would choose to develop his right chariot as a to develop his right horse as an edge horse. Now this is considered to be orthodox. The upside of making this move would be that Black would be able to have more options with his formations, because now he could still go for the 5-6, 5-7 cannons or the pawn rank cannon. The horse can be also developed in different ways than by developing it as a proper horse. However, because only one horse was now protecting the central pawn, Black's central file would become weak, so this would be the disadvantage. So in this variation, Red would choose to attack with r2+6. This would seem to be a brash move in retrospect. Now usually a6+5 or h3+4 would be played, and Red would choose to develop his chariot slightly later in the game, depending on how Black would play, and Red would try to counter his moves more accurately. So in this board, Red would choose to play r2+6 to threaten to pressure the Black horse, and the intentions of Red are quite obvious. Red will be prepared to play r2 = 3. However, this move, as mentioned earlier, could be considered brash because the cannon would now was already protecting the horse. So Black would not have to worry about the horse for the time being. Now in the book, Black chose to play the 5-7 cannons, threatening to target the red horse at this point in time. And Red would, since the cannon had moved away, Red would choose to develop his left chariot as a foul chariot. So this would be the double foul chariots variation. Now it would be important for Black to play r1 = 2 at this point in time. Black cannot jump the gun and try to push the pawn forward, because if he did, the red chariot would retreat one intersection and be prepared to capture the black pawn. Now because the horse had been developed as an edge horse, Black cannot play e3+1 to protect the pawn. So what would happen if p3+1 what would happen if Black continued to attack? Red would play r2 = 7. Now this move is usually played whereby Black would be prepared, the horse will now be protecting the cannon, and Black would be prepared to play c5 = 3 and target and attack this file. Unfortunately, because this will not be a good move at this point in time, because Red could simply play c8+5 to attack Black's cannon rank. Now this would be a multi-purpose move whereby the black cannon would now be threatening to capture the black horse and also block the black horse from protecting the black cannon. So Black would have to move his cannon away or lose his horse. So either way, this would not be Black would be in all sorts of trouble. Now if p3+1 were played and Black chose to retreat his chariot, but black tried to play this move instead, again red would simply play c8 plus 5 to prevent the horse from being developed, and again black will be in all sorts of trouble. So that is why r1 equals to 2 would be sound, and pushing p3 plus 1 would not be a good idea at this point in time. So, and because of this, red must advance his chariot for the pawn rank, cannon for the pawn rank cannon. This would be an attempt to decrease the space for development of this black chariot. If let's say red tried to continue with r2 equals to 3 as planned, black would take the opportunity to develop his chariot instead, and as can be seen now, in this situation, red's left flank would be very cramped. So one common way of getting out of this situation is to play c8 equals to 9 to offer a trade of chariots, whereby black would usually not accept, because it would be a waste of moves if he accepted the trade. Black would continue to protect the horse. Now there will be two pieces protecting the horse, the cannon and the chariot, while black would be targeting the horse when there's still a cannon here. So there will be two pieces attacking the horse and two pieces protecting. So this would in effect be an equilibrium. However, red's left flank will now be very congested. So black would usually continue p3 plus 1. Red would try to switch formations. And as can be seen, at this point in time, black would be prepared to play h3 plus 5 to attack the red chariot, and also to play h5 plus 4 to go for the elbow horse attack. So black would have been considered to have a successful opening in this situation, and that is why it will be very important for red to push the cannon before black gets a chance to push his chariot across the river. So now this would be a good move in this situation, although this advancing the chariot to the palace corner is frowned upon in some situations. This would be a good idea. This a nice time to make this move. By advancing the chariot here, the red horse will be in trouble, and this will result in only one horse protecting the central pawn, and thus discourage the red horse from moving. So usually red would try to protect his horse in this manner, and black would now be prepared to attack. So because in this board, after advancing the pawn, the main discussion will be on what would red do if he played r2 minus 1. Now this was a mischievous move, and the recommended move instead would have been e7 plus 9, whereby if the pawn charged, red could capture the pawn with e9 plus 7. So in this move, in this spot, the topic of discussion would be this position shown here. So red would retreat his chariot and threaten to capture the pawn and attack the advisor in this situation. So there was some mischief. So what should black do? There were two main variations. The first of which would be p3 plus 1, and the second would be p7 plus 1. Now, at this point in time, after retreating the cannon, it would not be a good idea to play r4 minus 4, because black would have lost a move in the process, and red would attack as planned. Black would try to offer a trade of chariots, and after trading material, as can be seen, red would have a significant advantage at this point, because first of all, the pawn was now ready to charge across the river to attack the black horse, thus forcing the elephant to move to the edge file. Both the red horses will now be very well developed. There will be many lines for development, and this black horse will still be undeveloped. And red would have a very nice formation available, and he would have a pawn advantage in this situation. So this would be a desirable outcome for red, and that is why r4 minus 4 is not advised. So going back to the book, in the first variation, p3 plus 1 was played, and this would be a knee-jerk response to this position. And because black had blundered, red would pounce on the chance to play r2 equals to 7 to attack the black cannon. What happens if p3 plus 1 were played? Now this would be the correct move at this point in time. Red cannot jump the gun and capture the black cannon. Otherwise, the trade of material, c5 goes to 7. Red would threaten to capture the elephant for the discovered check to capture the chariot. But black could defend in this manner. With this would be a very brilliant defense protecting of the elephant. So, and because the horse was now protecting the black chariot, although the 4 chariots, this is called a 4 chariot rendezvous, or 四车相见 in Chinese. Red would bound to lose material. So if let's say red chose to capture this, black would capture the and still threaten to capture the cannon. So at this point in time, 1, 2, 3, 4 versus red's two pieces. If red capture this, as can be seen, it would also be black's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces against red's 2 pieces. So that is why once this position were reached, black would gain material and a significant advantage in the situation, in the position shown. So this is why red cannot jump the gun and capture the black cannon. Instead, he must capture the offending pawn before attempting to attack the black cannon. And black would choose to try to gain material or trade material in this situation, but this would actually worsen black's own position. Red would capture the cannon in this manner, sacrificing his horse. And by moving the elephant to the central file, red will consolidate the central file and also allow the cannon to attack the black chariot. And this elephant will also protect the pawn, thereby disallowing the black chariot to capture the pawn or the elephant. So check. So when black was checked, black must make this move. A4 moving the advisor would be a terrible blunder, because red would simply play c8 equals to 3 to threaten to checkmate with the smarter cannon checkmate. So at this point in time, the red cannon would also be attacking the black chariot, and this chariot would also be preparing to trade chariot. So no matter how the game would go, red would gain material and black would be in a losing position. So that is why k5 plus 1 must be played. But because k5 plus 1 was played, the king was now in mortal danger, and this would be a very unsafe place to be, because not only would the advisors be unable to be linked, the king would also be very vulnerable to attacks by the chariots. But for the moment, red cannot make this move, or the horse would simply capture it. But instead, red would play c8 plus 2 to threaten to checkmate with by advancing the chariot. So black would be forced to capture the pawn, so that the black king would have an extra rank to move to. And after this trade, we can see that red would have concentrated his forces on black's right flank, and black would have basically, his position would have fallen apart, and it would be red's attacking game. So this would be a significant advantage to red. So that is why this would be the variation that was discussed. This is why p3 plus 1 was a big mistake. The correct move in this situation would be p7 plus 1, whereby black would choose to trade a sacrifice a pawn at this point in time. By pushing p7 plus 1, the horse would be threatening to capture the red chariot, and red's plans of hoping to make gains would be smashed, because now c8 equals to 3 would also not be a possibility. So usually red would be forced to play r2 equals to 3, and at this point in time, black could continue to attack with p3 plus 1 without any fear. Now at this point in time, there were two sub-variations for variation 2 in this board. The first of which would be a6 plus 5, the second would be r3 equals to 7. If a6 plus 5 were played, red would try to dislodge the pesky black chariot at the palace corner. And because there was already a subtle change in the position, black could now safely play r4 minus 4. So red will try to play r3 equals to 7, but black would not give any care and continue to charge his pawn forward, threatening to capture the horse, which will usually force the horse backwards. Now red might think that he would not have to fear h1 plus 3 because he would be a trade of material. However, black could simply capture the cannon, and this would be the most straightforward approach in this situation. c3 equals to 4 would be a little bit long-winded, because red would be given a chance of a reprieve. And although the material would be same, black would have captured the central pawn, red would still have his chances for attack, and black would not be able to control this situation very well. So usually this is frowned upon, whereby control of the initiative is always favored in Xiangqi. So the best move perhaps would be r4 equals to 2 to simply trade material. So as can be seen, at this point in time, it would be black's 1 chariot, 2 horses and 1 cannon versus red's 1 chariot, 2 horses and 1 cannon. But we can see that black had already a pawn that crossed the river, and also his horses were very well developed. Now by choosing to trade chariots, black would increase his initiative. So r7 minus 1 to trade material. Although red would try to be compensated with p3 plus 1, black would simply charge the horse forward. So this is one of the ways of developing the edge horse from here. h2 plus 1, h1 plus 3, h3 plus 4. Once the horse were able to cross the river, it would be a major threat, because now it could go for h4 plus 2 to go for the elbow horse checkmate. h4 plus 6 would also be a viable option, and thus capturing the pawn. So, and if red tried to attack the horse would simply retreat. Red would still be unable to capture the central pawn, because this horse would have been guarding it, and black would later develop this chariot from this flank. So red would have a very big advantage in this situation, and that is why a6 plus 5 would not be a good idea. Instead, what would happen if red chose to play r3 equals to 7 instead? Again, black would still be black would not have to fear anything, because black would still attack with p3 plus 1, trade material, try to capture the horse because the cannon would now have blocked the elephant from protecting the horse. And R2 minus 1. And as can be seen, black would have a significant advantage. First of all, his pawn was very well advanced. Second, the horse was now developed, and there were many options for black to continue with like say h6 plus 4, or even h6 plus 5, or even h2 minus 2 to trade at the cannon, forcing the cannon away to capture the red chariot. So red will be in deep trouble. So this is why p7 plus 1 would be the correct move in this situation. There were another two positions that were discussed when red would have to capture the black cannon and cannot capture the black pawn. Now this would be completely different in this situation because once p7 plus 1 had been played, now red cannot capture the pawn, otherwise because the pawn black had already played p7 plus 1, the threat of c8 equals to 3 would not be present, and that is why black would now have gained material, and red would instead be in trouble because now black could continue with r7 equals to 5, etc. to relieve some pressure, and the material advantage will be significant. If black tried to attempt a discover check, red will simply capture the cannon, and at this point in time there will be two chariots, two horses, and one black cannon, whereas red would only have 3 pieces left, so red would lose material and probably the game, as red would be in a dilemma in deciding on which chariot to trade. So that is why, r7 plus 2 is not viable. r7 minus 2 to capture the pawn would not be viable. And there's one last variation. If red did not capture the h horse and chose to play c8 minus 2, black could move the pawn to threaten to capture the red cannon, and this was a very powerful move, and because of this, black would now be able to charge his horse across the river. If the pawn crossed, red would simply capture the central pawn and gain a very significant advantage. This advantage should also be clear. Now, a short recap. The position of discussion was this, r2 minus 1, and I hope that you will be able to go over the interactive board and compare this position with this position. So as can be seen, because black had played p7 plus 1 and denied, this would be a prophylactic move to deny red the option of playing c8 equals to 3. This would be the reason why black would come out tops in this variation. So please compare these two variations, because the way both colors were attacked were very similar, but the minute difference of pushing a pawn here made a whole world of difference for both colors. So I hope you have enjoyed this short video, and if you like the work that I'm doing, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.